Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Ramstein. It's great to see everyone. And I'm honored that you could join us for the 25th gathering of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. I know that you've seen the American flags flying at half-mast today. That's a tribute to the late President Jimmy Carter, who will be honored today in our nation's capital. And I hope that we will all carry forward his deep devotion to the cause of human rights and human decency. Now, all Americans are also watching the terrifying wildfires that are ripping through parts of Southern California. The department will continue to stand ready to surge support as needed. And that includes federal air assets that California can request to help fight the fire from the sky, and many U.S. installations, U.S. military installations in the area that have personnel and equipment that can also be urged to fight this awful blaze, surge to fight this awful blaze. We stand with the people of California in this terrible time. And now let me turn to our agenda here. Let me welcome our Ukrainian colleagues who have again made the trip from Kyiv to Ramstein. As you know, we are honored to be joined today by a leader who has made history, President Zelensky. Mr. President, it's an honor to have you back in Ramstein. The whole world has been moved by the courage of Ukraine's forces and the strength of Ukraine's people. And you know firsthand how much this contact group has meant for Ukraine's fight for freedom. President Zelensky, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your words, strong words about our people and about us. Thank you very much, Secretary. And I'm grateful to you for your personal leadership during all these years and your personal involvement, and the United States for coordinating this format and working together with us since the start of the full-scale war. Minister Pistorius and I dearly appreciate your help and Germany's impactful support for all our people, for Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, dear our friends, it's clear that a new chapter starts for Europe and the entire world just 11 days from now, at a time when we have to cooperate even more, rely on one another even more, and achieve even greater results together. And I see this as a time of opportunities, and in almost 3 years of full-scale war, we've shown that when we come and belong together, no one is too small to make a real impact on history. And we've come such a long way that it would honestly be crazy to drop the ball now and not keep building on the defense coalitions we've created, especially since they are already helping us grow and strengthen what's basically our shared defense power. No matter what's going on in the world, everyone wants to feel sure that their country will not just be erased off the map. That used to depend on a handful of big capitals, but now it's on all of us, on how we work together, how ready we are to own our future and how well we can convince our partners to stand with us. The more determination we show in defending our interests, the more interest our partners, and especially the US, will see it's good to stay on our side. Yesterday I held a special meeting of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief's staff, and the focus was on the production and supply of drones for our soldiers, for our army, and electronic warfare. Drones are something that has already changed the nature of war. And the changes are far from over. Today there is a direct dependence to stop the advance of the enemy, to stop losing people and territories. We need drones. Drones detour the enemy, keep them at the distance. It can be done. Production of drones in Ukraine is more cost-effective than anywhere else. This year, we in Ukraine want to set a record for the number and quality of drones we produce and get from our partners. And we are focusing on drones that our brigades need to hold the front lines, and drones essential for ensuring security, like maritime drones and drones made for deep strikes on the enemy's military facilities and infrastructure in their territory. We've already signed a significant number of contracts, with many more still in the works, and I urge all of you to get even more actively involved in building up this arsenal of drones. Ukrainians have the most experience in Europe with using drones, and we also have the biggest capacity in Europe to produce drones. So first, please invest more in these Ukrainian strengths, because after the war it will also be your strength. Second, invest in the talented people in your countries who can help make all of us stronger in the drone field. Next, with most of the countries represented here, we already have bilateral security cooperation. I'm grateful to those countries with which we've signed bilateral security agreements, 27 of them as of today. And fully implementing these agreements is a real contribution, not only to our security in Ukraine, but also to your security. But we are a bigger number here in Ramstein, much more bigger. Let's pool our strengths together and make such agreements with all the participants. And I'm asking my Minister of Defense to work with the Secretary and with all the ministers to increase the number of these documents. Of course, if partners will support this idea. And I know that it will strengthen our front line, and it will also protect, which is very, very important, especially in winter, it will protect our energy sector too. Not only in Ukraine, but also in your lands. It will boost the security programs. And now we see all the reports with underwater cables in the Baltic Sea, and we all see drone incidents in some countries that are raising serious concerns. We see destabilization in Africa, which threatens Europe with new migration waves. And we are also learning more about how Russian intelligence paid militants in Afghanistan to target coalition soldiers. When your troops were present there, Moscow cashed in to kill your soldiers, American soldiers, NATO country soldiers. How can this be forgiven or forgotten? Russia's hybrid aggression and sabotage against the entire Western world is ongoing. And only by keeping and strengthening our cooperation, by boosting our agreements and coalitions, can we truly protect the normal lives of people in all our countries. I do everything I can to end this war with dignity for Ukraine and all of Europe this year, and I know I can count on your support. And we all must remember that ending the war is our shared goal, not Russians. It's what Ukrainians, Europeans, Americans, and many of our global partners want. Countries as far apart as Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Argentina also wish us peace. But here is the thing: Putin is not just holding on to his investments in aggression. He is doubling down. He has even started basically hiring soldiers from North Korea to keep this war going. North Korea studies modern warfare. They do not value their people, and we know it. They lose them 4,000 as for today. But Pyongyang gets experience cheap to re-export the war, maybe there in the Pacific. At the same time, this collusion with North Korea shows Putin's weakness, because no ruler in Moscow would ever lower themselves to back in Pyongyang unless facing critical problems. So we've got to keep the pressure on Russia. That's what ensures our soldiers get the weapons they need. That's what sanctions are for. And I'm asking all our partners, especially the US and the EU, to turn up the heat on Russia's energy sector. Sanctions are needed against every element of Russian energy, and the Russian tanker fleet must be stopped. Russia's war budget for 2025 is 25% bigger than last year's. If we want to stop the killing, we have got to cut off Putin's cash flow. Putin will start thinking about peace only when his inner circle tells him he is out of money. And one more thing: the key to resisting aggression is motivation, and we know it. Motivation to risk your life to save your country. But motivation needs fuel, and the best fuel is success. I mean successful actions, successful agreements. When our troops can shoot down Russian missiles, including ballistic ones, and keep Russian aircraft away from Ukraine, it provides the motivation we desperately need. And we've had talks with the US about licensing the production of air defense systems and missiles here in Ukraine, and this could become a significant part of our security guarantees, and it's absolutely doable. But we must keep in mind that the last NATO summit promises haven't been fulfilled yet. We need air defense systems. You gave us already, thank you so much, and we need very much systems you promised us. And you've seen what happened yesterday in our city, Zaporizhia. Russia's bombs killed 13 people and 112 were injured. That was just one day, just one attack, one strike from the air. We must stop Russia's terror, and you can do it. And we ask for urgent deliveries of air defense systems. We also need to deliver on all our agreements for frontline supplies. And I want to thank again every country helping us with artillery, armored vehicles, and everything else we need. Our men and women on the front lines need to feel that the world has their back, and nothing proves that better than making sure they have what they need to hit back at Russian attacks. Last year, France came up with the idea to deploy partners, contingents in Ukraine, and you know it, to make peace closer. And we all understand, as for today, Putin's aims remain unchanged, and he wants to totally destroy Ukraine and to break all of us, and you too. That's why our goal to find as many instruments as possible to force Russia to peace. I believe that such deployment of partners, contingents, is one of the best instruments. Let's be more practical in making it possible. And we have heard signals also from some of our partners from the United Kingdom in support of this, and we must be brave, and we must propose truly strong instruments. take, for example, take the Kursk operation. It's one of our wins, I think one of the biggest wins, not just last year, but throughout the war. Russia had to pull almost 60,000 troops of the Ukrainian front to deal with it. And as of this Monday, it's been 5 months since our troops have maintained a buffer zone on Russian territory. Many of Russian threats and bold claims turned out to be bluffing, especially after Ukraine's moved into the Kursk region. And I'm sure even more of their threats will prove to be bluffs if we all work even harder. Even harder together to push Russia toward peace. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you, Secretary. Stay confident. Slava Ukraini. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, President Zelensky. I know that I speak on behalf of everyone here. The spirit of Ukraine has inspired us all, and it has reminded us all to never take our freedom for granted. That's been true ever since the contact group convened for the first time here on April 26, 2022. That first meeting and today's meeting would not have been possible without our host. So let me invite Minister Pistorius to say a few words. Boris, over to you.
Thank you very much, dear Lloyd, dear President Zelensky, dear Volodymyr, dear Rustem, dear friends and colleagues. I'm pleased to welcome you to Ramstein for the first UDCG session in 2025. For the 25th time since the beginning of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, we are gathered here in our support to Ukraine, demonstrating our unity as well as our unwavering solidarity. Since the early 1950s, Ramstein Airbase has been the gateway for US troops to Germany and Europe. It has served as an important hub for US power projection in order to protect European allies. Ramstein Airbase is a symbol for the strong solidarity between the US, Germany, and our European friends working together as reliable and committed partners. For decades, the name Ramstein has stood for our ability to successfully defend freedom together with our partners. Therefore, it is a perfect place to bring together the partners of Ukraine today. We will discuss how to fulfill our unwavering commitment to support Ukraine to guarantee its freedom and security. Lloyd, let me turn to you first. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone present when extending my sincere gratitude. Thank you for initiating the UDCG. Thank you for your extraordinary leadership over the past almost 3 years. I vividly remember the day after I took office as Defense Minister 2 years ago. It was the day I joined the UDCG for the first time. It was a Friday, and the day you, Lloyd, welcomed me to this group of partners. Thank you to your warm and yet vigorous nature, you managed to bring together and lead an ever-growing coalition of partners. As of today, more than 50 nations have joined our support efforts for Ukraine. You did not falter in your commitment, not even when faced with personal hardship. This was highly impressive and moved me deeply. Lloyd, your personal dedication has made a major difference. Without you, your commitment and your leadership, Ukraine's fight for freedom would not have yielded the same results. Results which must now inspire us to make all the efforts for what is to come. You have demonstrated to us that, I quote you, the price of principle is always dwarfed by the cost of capitulation, as you put it in such a compelling way. We owe you our deepest gratitude for this leadership performance. Led by the US, the UDCG has proved highly successful. It is all about keeping this format alive. My dear colleagues, it is an honor and a pleasure for Germany to be able to come together with so many government representatives today. Laskovo prosimo, a very warm welcome in particular to all our Ukrainian friends. I wish you all a successful meeting today and all a happy and hopefully, maybe, perhaps, a more peaceful year 2025. Thanks a lot.
Minister Pistorius, thanks again. A special thanks for those very generous words. And thanks for all that your government has done for Ukraine. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a big day, and this is a great cause. I continue to be moved by the dedication of the countries that are here today, and I continue to be inspired by this contact group. You are all helping to ensure that Ukraine can defend itself and fight for its freedom. Nearly 3 years ago, we gathered at Ramstein for the first time. It was a moment of great uncertainty and urgency. The Kremlin was just 2 months into its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine's survival was in danger, and so much was unsettled at our first meeting at Ramstein. But two things were already clear. The Ukrainian people had chosen to fight, and they needed help from countries around the world. So we gathered here, and we began to coordinate security assistance to Ukraine swiftly and decisively. And back in April of 2022, few people could have imagined the level of support that our countries have delivered to Ukraine. Putin clearly never imagined it. In the first months of the war, we provided everything from Javelin missiles and Stinger missiles to artillery systems. And that helped Ukraine withstand the first thrust of Putin's invasion. And month after month, members of this contact group have helped provide, produce, and sustain the systems and the munitions that Ukraine needs. And that includes advanced air defense systems and long-range strike capabilities. Ukraine has suffered terribly from Russia's imperial aggression. But the sustained, principled commitments by the countries gathered here have made all the difference. This contact group has evolved, and so have the capabilities that its members have provided. We have stood up 8 capability coalitions, and they are led by 14 countries as well as Ukraine. In close partnership with our national armaments directors, these new coalitions ensure that our support is coordinated, efficient, and sustainable. And their work has helped Ukraine to more swiftly absorb the security assistance that we provide. Thanks to the leadership of the Air Force Coalition, Ukraine is now flying 4th-generation fighters. And thanks to the Maritime Coalition, Ukraine is building up the capabilities that it needs to defeat and deter Russian aggression in the Black Sea. Earlier today, the coalition leadership group met again, including representatives from our 15 countries. And they endorsed capability coalition roadmaps leading to the year 2027. And through the capability coalitions, partner countries can continue to support Ukraine's urgent battlefield needs. And they can continue to help Ukraine build a force that will deter more Russian aggression over the long haul as Ukraine implements its own critical reforms on mobilization and other areas. The Kremlin's assaults today remind us of the scope of the danger. Putin isn't letting up. His forces continue their grinding offensive in the east of Ukraine. In Kursk, Russian troops are fighting alongside North Korean forces to drive back Ukraine's troops. And meanwhile, the Kremlin continues to bombard Ukraine's civilians and critical infrastructure without pity or pause. And yet again, Ukraine faces a winter of war. And yet again, Putin is targeting Ukraine's energy grid. And he's using increasingly ruthless missile and drone strikes. In February, we will mark 3 years of Putin's war. And the stakes are still enormous for all of our security. If Putin swallows Ukraine, his appetite will only grow. If autocrats conclude that democracies will lose their nerve, surrender their interests, and forget their principles, we will only see more land grabs. If tyrants learn that aggression pays, we will only invite even more aggression, chaos, and war. But we are still determined to not let that happen. And so are the free people of Ukraine. And so are the nations of goodwill around the world and around this table. Retreat will only provide incentives for more imperial aggression. And if we flinch, you can count on Putin to push further and punch harder. Ukraine's survival is on the line. But so is the security of Europe, the United States, and the world. And that's why the some 50 members of this contact group continue to stand united with Ukraine. And now, as you all know, today marks my last contact group, and I am incredibly proud of what we've achieved together. Over the past few years, we've moved heaven and earth to get Ukraine the security assistance that it needs. And together we've committed more than $122 billion worth of security assistance and expanded factories around the world. And that has rushed capabilities to Ukraine ranging from artillery systems to ammunition to main battle tanks. It includes air defense platforms, interceptors, and drones. In just the past few weeks, we've seen contact group members step up with important new donations. Germany announced that it will deliver $680 million worth of military equipment to Ukraine by the end of the year. Others have already budgeted generous sums of 2025 aid. And Norway has committed more than $2 billion for military support, and the UK is allocating £3 billion annually. As a percentage of GDP, Denmark, Estonia, and Latvia are now the top 3 providers of assistance to Ukraine. So, we must not let up, and that's why I'm announcing today another presidential drawdown authority package valued at $500 million. It includes additional missiles for Ukrainian air defense, more ammunition, more air-to-ground munitions, and other equipment to support Ukraine's F-16s. Here again in Ramstein, I am determined to do all I can to help Ukraine live in freedom and security, and to forge a more just and decent world. And together, our work must continue. Here is the fundamental truth. Ukraine's fight matters to all of us. As I said here in Ramstein back in our first meeting in April 2022, Putin's war is a challenge to free people everywhere. And we all have a stake in ensuring that autocrats cannot place their imperial ambitions ahead of the bedrock rights of free and sovereign peoples. Ukraine is waging a just war of self-defense, and it is one of the great causes of our time. And chairing this contact group has been one of the great honors of my life. But this is a day for business and not talk. And I'm looking forward to yet another highly productive meeting. And so we'll pause as our friends in the media depart, and then we'll get to work. Thank you very much.
Excellent.